The massive alien ships appeared above Earth like dark clouds blocking out the sun. There were hundreds of them, each one the size of a city. Their hulls were black metal that seemed to absorb light itself. The ships moved slowly through Earth's atmosphere, casting shadows over every continent. Commander Jiwan stood in the war room deep beneath Seoul, watching the invasion unfold on dozens of screens. Her dark eyes tracked each enemy vessel as they took positions over major cities. She had prepared for this moment her entire life, but seeing it happen still made her chest tight with fear and excitement. "Sir, they're broadcasting a message on all frequencies," reported Lieutenant Kyung, his young face pale as he worked at his console. "Should I put it through?" Jiwan nodded. The main screen flickered, then showed a creature that looked like a giant insect walking upright. Its forearms ended in sharp claws and its head was covered in what looked like black armor. When it spoke, the voice was deep and cold. "I am Overlord Thexvar of the Galactic Dominion. Your planet is now property of our empire. Surrender immediately, and some of you may live as workers. Resist, and we will turn your world to ash." The message ended. Jiwan looked around the room at her officers. They all knew what came next. Earth's surface military would fight with everything they had. They would lose. And then the real plan would begin. Above ground, the war started exactly as Jiwan expected. Earth's fighter jets screamed through the sky, firing missiles at the alien ships. The weapons exploded against the dark hulls like fireworks, leaving no damage at all. The alien ships didn't even slow down. Captain Nari led her squadron of F-35 fighters in a desperate attack run against one of the smaller enemy vessels. Her radio crackled with the voices of her pilots as they fired everything they had. "No effect. The missiles aren't even scratching them," shouted her wingman. "Keep firing. Hit the same spot," Nari ordered, though she knew it was hopeless. The alien ship turned toward them and a beam of red light swept across the sky. 3 of her fighters exploded instantly. "All units, break off. Get out of there." The remaining jets scattered, but more red beams followed them. Within minutes, half of Nari's squadron was gone. She watched her radar screen as friendly contacts disappeared one by one. Her hands gripped the controls tighter as she dove her jet toward the ground. On the surface, the alien ground troops began landing. The creatures that came out of the transport ships were different from the one on the broadcast. These were larger, with thick gray skin and 6 legs that moved like spiders. They carried weapons that fired bolts of energy, turning anything they hit into burning slag. General Taiho coordinated the ground defense from his bunker in Tokyo. His screens showed battles raging across every continent. Tanks fired their main guns at the aliens, but the shells bounced off their thick hides. Soldiers with rifles tried to find weak spots, but the aliens' energy weapons cut through buildings and armor like paper. "Sir, we're losing contact with the European front," reported Major Hugh, sweat running down his face. "London, Paris, and Berlin are all going dark." Taiho watched the tactical display as red enemy markers spread across the map like a disease. Earth's military was well-trained and brave, but they were fighting with weapons designed to kill other humans. The aliens had technology that was centuries ahead. Dr. Minho worked frantically in his laboratory trying to find some weakness in the alien technology. He had been Earth's top scientist for 20 years, but nothing he saw made sense. The alien ships used energy sources that shouldn't exist, and their weapons violated several laws of physics. "The power readings are impossible," he muttered to himself, staring at scanner data from the alien vessels. No known energy source could power ships that large. His assistant, Dr. Yejin, looked over his shoulder. "What if they're not using any energy source we know about?" "That's what I'm afraid of," Minho replied. He saved his data to an encrypted drive, then started deleting all the files from his computer. Soon he would have to abandon this lab and disappear underground. But first he needed to send one message. The battle for New York City lasted 3 hours. The aliens destroyed the Brooklyn Bridge with a single shot, then began methodically destroying every military base and government building. The human defenders fought building by building, but they couldn't stop the advance. President Chen spoke to the world from her bunker beneath Washington, D.C. Her voice was calm, but her hands shook as she read from the prepared statement. My fellow humans, we have fought bravely, but we cannot win this battle. The alien technology is too advanced. To save as many lives as possible, I am ordering all military units to lay down their arms. We surrender to the Galactic Dominion. G1. Watched the surrender broadcast from her hidden command center. Around her, dozens of officers and technicians continued working as if nothing had happened. None of them looked surprised or defeated. They had been expecting this moment. Phase 1 complete, she announced to the room. Begin Phase 2 preparations. The surrender was broadcast on every frequency and repeated in 50 languages. Within hours, human military units across the globe stopped fighting. The aliens accepted the surrender and began setting up occupation zones in major cities. Overlord Thexvar appeared on every screen on Earth to deliver his victory speech. The alien commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the blue planet below. The conquest of this world took less than one rotation. Your species showed courage but lacked wisdom. You will serve the Dominion as all conquered species do. Your planet's resources will fuel our empire's expansion. The message was also broadcast across the galaxy, reaching every world under Dominion control. It was meant to show other species what happened to those who might think about rebelling. Earth was just the latest in a long line of conquests. But in hidden bunkers around the world, humans who weren't supposed to exist continued their work. They had been preparing for this day for decades, and everything was going exactly according to plan. G1 met with her senior staff in a conference room that didn't appear on any official building plans. The walls were lined with screens showing data streams from across the globe. Despite the surrender, information continued flowing from thousands of hidden sensors and spy networks. Status report, she ordered. All deep bunkers are secure and undetected, reported Colonel Jaehoon. The aliens are using standard occupation protocols. They're not even looking for underground facilities. Good. What about our assets on the surface? In position and maintaining cover. The aliens think they're dealing with scattered survivors and refugees. Dr. Minho entered the room carrying a tablet filled with data. I've completed the analysis of their technology. It's advanced, but not impossibly so. We can work with this. Jawan nodded. The plan was working perfectly. The aliens thought they had conquered Earth, but they had actually walked into a trap that had been 50 years in the making. Now came the hard part. They had to wait, watch, and learn everything they could about their new occupiers. Outside, alien patrols walked through the ruins of human cities, confident that they had won another easy victory. They had no idea that beneath their feet, humanity's real war was just beginning. 3 months had passed since Earth's surrender. The alien occupation forces had settled into their routine. Their massive ships still hung in the sky over major cities, but now they looked more like permanent structures than invading vessels. The aliens had divided Earth into mining zones and labor camps, just like they had done on hundreds of other conquered worlds. Sector Commander Vexthal stood on the observation deck of his command ship above what used to be called London. He was smaller than Overlord Thexvar, with only 2 arms instead of 4, but his black armor carried the marks of many successful conquests. This assignment was supposed to be easy duty after the real war moved on to more challenging worlds. Status. Report, he ordered his aide, a young officer named Subcommander Kexel. Mining operations are ahead of schedule. The humans are cooperative workers, though they require more food than most species. Resistance activity is minimal. Vexthal nodded with satisfaction. Earth was turning out to be one of their more successful conquests. The humans had accepted their defeat completely and were working without complaint in the resource extraction facilities. But beneath the surface, things were very different from what the aliens believed. Commander Jiwan walked through corridors that had never appeared on any surface map. The underground complex stretched for miles beneath Seoul, connecting to similar facilities under every major city on Earth. She had spent the past 3 months moving through these hidden tunnels, coordinating with resistance cells that the aliens didn't even know existed. "Ma'am, we're ready for the facility tour," said Sergeant Hyunwoo. He was a compact man with serious eyes who had been training for underground warfare his entire career. Today, he would be showing her something That would change everything. They took an elevator that descended much deeper than any civilian building. When the doors opened, Jiwon stepped into a massive chamber carved from solid rock. The ceiling stretched up into darkness, and the floor was filled with equipment that hummed with quiet power. "Welcome to Deep Base 7, said Dr. Minho, approaching from across the chamber. He looked different now, wearing a black uniform instead of his old lab coat. One of 47 identical facilities worldwide. Jiwon stared around the chamber in amazement. She had known about the underground bases in theory, but seeing one in person was overwhelming. "How long has this been here?" "Construction began in 1967, replied Engineer Somin, a young woman with oil stains on her hands and excitement in her voice. "We've been preparing for alien invasion for 60 years. This base was built to support 5,000 people for 10 years. They walked deeper into the facility. Jiwon saw workshops filled with advanced machinery, laboratories with equipment she didn't recognize, and living quarters that could house hundreds of families. Everything was designed to be invisible to surface detection. The aliens are using standard orbital scans to monitor the planet, explained Professor Donghyun, an elderly man who had once taught physics at Seoul University. Their sensors can't penetrate more than 50 meters underground. All of our major facilities are at least 200 meters down. In another section of the base, Captain Nari was preparing for a very different kind of mission than her last one. 3 months ago, she had flown outdated jets against impossible odds. Today, she stood beside a sleek black aircraft that looked like nothing any human should have been able to build. "This is the Ghost-class interceptor," explained Chief Engineer Baki, running his hand along the ship's smooth hull. "Powered by a fusion core we reverse-engineered from a crashed alien scout in 1998. It can outrun anything in their fleet." Nari climbed into the cockpit, her hands finding controls that felt both familiar and alien. The display screens showed tactical information in languages she recognized mixed with symbols she had never seen before. "How many of these do we have?" she asked. 3,000. Spread across 40 hidden airfields, Boki replied. Each one crewed by pilots who have been training in secret for decades. The resistance had been growing stronger every day, but they had been very careful to hide their activities. Small teams led by operatives like Lieutenant Yuna had been conducting hit-and-run attacks on alien supply convoys. The attacks were designed to look like desperate acts by scattered survivors, not part of any organized plan. Yuna crouched behind a pile of rubble that had once been part of the Tokyo Financial District. Her team of 12 fighters was armed with weapons that looked like primitive human guns, but fired energy bolts similar to alien weapons. They had been watching this convoy route for weeks, learning the patterns. "Remember," she whispered into her radio, "make it look random. Take out the supplies, but let some guards escape. We want them to report another desperate refugee attack." The alien convoy approached right on schedule, 3 armored vehicles carrying equipment for their mining operations, protected by 12 spider-like guards. The aliens had grown careless over the past few months, reducing their patrols and security measures. Yuna's team struck fast. Energy bolts struck the lead vehicle, causing it to explode in a bright flash. The alien guards scattered, firing wildly at enemies they couldn't see clearly. Within 30 seconds, the convoy was destroyed and Yuna's team had vanished back into the ruins. The attack would be reported as another minor incident. The aliens would replace the supplies and continue their routine. They had no idea that every attack was carefully planned and executed by a global resistance network. Back in the deep facility, Chief Analyst Jinwook was coordinating intelligence operations from a command center that rivaled anything the aliens had. His screens showed data from spy networks that had been operating since before the invasion. "We now have complete tactical information on their orbital defenses," he reported to Commander Jiwon. "Ship positions, weapon systems, patrol schedules, and communication protocols." "What about their homeworld?" "We've had deep cover agents in their empire for 23 years. We know the location of their capital, their main fleet bases, and the command structure of their entire military." Jiwon studied the intelligence reports with growing excitement. The aliens thought they were dealing with a primitive species that had barely learned to fly in space. They had no idea that human agents had been infiltrating their empire for decades, gathering information and preparing for this exact scenario. Dr. Minho approached carrying a data tablet filled with technical specifications. We've completed our analysis of their technology. Their ships are powerful, but they're not invincible. We've identified 17 critical vulnerabilities in their design. Can we exploit them? We've been building weapons specifically designed to target those weaknesses. The aliens have never faced an enemy that understood their technology better than they do. In hidden factories around the world, human workers were building an arsenal that the aliens couldn't imagine. Ships that combined human engineering with captured alien technology, weapons designed to penetrate alien shields, communication systems that could hack into enemy networks. The aliens continued their mining operations, confident that Earth was just another conquered world. They had no idea that beneath their feet, humanity was preparing to teach them the difference between surrender and defeat. Commander Jiwan stood in the main control room, watching status reports flow in from resistance cells around the globe. Phase 2 was almost complete. Soon it would be time to show the Galactic Dominion what humans could do when they had time to prepare. The real war was about to begin. 6 months after Earth's surrender, Sector Commander Vexthal was beginning to worry. His daily reports showed problems that shouldn't exist on a fully conquered world. Supply convoys were disappearing. Communication towers were failing. Most troubling of all, his garrison was shrinking. "How many soldiers did we lose this week?" he asked Sub-Commander Kexel during their morning briefing. 47 confirmed missing, sir. Another dozen reported equipment failures and requested evacuation. To the medical ships. Vexthal studied the tactical display showing his forces spread across Earth. When he had started with 50,000 troops, losing a few dozen per week seemed normal. But now his numbers were down to barely 20,000, and the losses were accelerating. "These humans are more troublesome than expected," he muttered. "Double all patrols and increase security around our supply bases." What Vexthal didn't know was that his orders would never reach Dominion High Command. Engineer Soman and her cyber warfare team had taken complete control of Earth's communication network 6 weeks ago. Every message the aliens sent was intercepted, analyzed, and either blocked or replaced with false information. "Sir, we're ready to begin Phase 3. Soman reported to Commander Jiwan from her position in the underground command center. Hybridia. Screens showed the flow of alien communications across the planet. "They have no idea we're reading everything they send." Jiwan nodded grimly. The time for hiding was almost over. "Send the activation codes to all units. Operation Sunrise begins in 12 hours. Around the world, resistance cells that had been waiting and hiding received their final orders. The message was simple. Reveal everything. Hit everything. Destroy everything. Humanity was done pretending to be defeated. Admiral Kangman had been waiting for this moment for 30 years. He stood on the bridge of the battleship Teguk, hidden in an underwater facility beneath the Pacific Ocean. Around his ship, dozens of other vessels prepared for launch from concealed bases on every continent. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said his second-in-command, Captain Minseok. "The fleet is at full battle readiness." Kangman looked at the tactical display showing Earth's surface. The alien ships hung in orbit like they owned the planet. In a few hours, they would learn how wrong they were. "Begin launch sequence," he ordered. "It's time to take back our sky." The ocean floor split open above the hidden base. Water rushed away as massive blast doors revealed the launch tubes below. One by one, sleek human warships rose through the water and broke the surface, their hulls gleaming with advanced armor that incorporated both human engineering and alien technology. Captain Nari led the first wave of fighters into the sky. Her squadron of ghost interceptors climbed toward the alien fleet, their engines silent and their hulls invisible to enemy sensors. Behind her flew 3,000 more fighters, pilots who had trained their entire lives for this moment. "All units, this is Ghost Leader," she spoke into her radio. "We are weapons-free. Show them what humanity can do." The alien patrol ships detected the attack too late. Nari's fighters appeared on their screens like ghosts becoming solid. already firing weapons that tore through alien shields like paper. The first enemy vessel exploded in a ball of fire before its crew could send a distress signal. On the ground, the resistance dropped all pretense of being scattered survivors. Sergeant Hyunwoo led an assault team out of hidden tunnels directly beneath the alien command post in London. His soldiers wore powered armor and carried plasma rifles that matched anything the aliens had. "Remember your training," he told his troops as they prepared to breach the alien facility. "They've never faced humans who were ready for them. Let's show them the difference." The attack began with precision explosives that took out the alien perimeter guards. Hyunwoo's team rushed through the breach, their armor protecting them from enemy fire, while their weapons cut down the spider-like alien soldiers with devastating efficiency. Lieutenant Yuna infiltrated the alien communication center in Tokyo, her stealth suit making her invisible to their sensors. She planted cyber warfare devices that would give Engineer Soman complete access to their tactical networks, then began systematically destroying their equipment. The aliens tried to coordinate a response, but their communication systems were failing across the planet. Every order they sent was intercepted or jammed. Their reinforcement requests never left Earth's atmosphere. Admiral Kang Min's fleet engaged the main alien battle group in Earth's upper atmosphere. The human ships fought with a ferocity and coordination that shocked the alien commanders. These weren't the primitive vessels they had easily destroyed 6 months ago. "Sir, the human ships are using our own technology against us," reported one of Vexthal's officers. "Their weapons are penetrating our shields." Vexthal watched in horror as his orbital defense platforms were systematically destroyed. The human ships moved in perfect formation, each one targeting the exact weak points in alien designs that shouldn't have been known to any enemy. Dr. Minho coordinated the technical aspects of the assault from his command center. The weapons his team had built over decades of preparation were performing exactly as designed. Every alien ship that humanity had ever captured or studied had provided information that was now being used against them. "Their shield generators are overloading," he reported to Commander G1. "The frequency modulation we developed is disrupting their entire power grid." Around the world, alien bases were falling to coordinated attacks. The creatures that had seemed invincible 6 months ago were being overwhelmed by humans who fought with superior technology, better tactics, and absolute determination. Professor Dong-Yun watched the battle from his monitoring station, tracking the movements of both fleets. "The aliens are trying to retreat," he announced. "Should we let them go?" "No," replied Ji-won firmly. "We can't let them report back to their empire. Every alien ship must be destroyed." Captain Nari's fighters pursued the retreating alien vessels, preventing any from escaping Earth's gravity well. Her pilots had trained for this scenario repeatedly, knowing that letting even one enemy ship escape could bring the entire Dominion fleet down on Earth. The final alien stronghold was Sector Commander Vexthal's command ship above London. Admiral Kang Min's flagship approached the massive vessel, its weapons powered and ready. "This is Admiral Kang Min of the Earth Defense Fleet," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Surrender now, and your crew will be treated according to the laws of war." Vexthal stared at the human ship approaching his vessel. It was smaller than his dreadnought, but somehow it seemed more dangerous. The human admiral's words echoed in his mind. Earth Defense Fleet? The humans were supposed to be conquered slaves, not an organized military force. How is this possible? He whispered to himself. His question was answered when Lieutenant Yuna's voice came through the ship's communication system. She had infiltrated his bridge and was standing behind his command chair with a weapon pointed at his head. "You thought you conquered Earth," she said calmly. "But Earth was never the target. We've been preparing for you for 50 years. We studied your technology, infiltrated your empire, and learned everything about your weaknesses. The war you thought you won was just the first move in a much larger game." The last alien ship in Earth orbit surrendered 30 minutes later. The Galactic Dominion's perfect conquest had become their worst military disaster. But this was only the beginning of humanity's real plan. The news of Earth's rebellion reached Overlord Thexvar 3 weeks after his occupation force was destroyed. He stood in his throne room aboard the massive fortress ship Domination, staring at the emergency transmission from the Outer Rim territories. Impossible, he growled, his forearms clenching into fists. Humans are primitive. They surrendered without significant resistance. Chief Analyst Jinwook had been waiting for this moment. From his position in the deep command bunker beneath Seoul, he watched alien communication networks across the galaxy as panic spread through Dominion space. The loss of an entire sector fleet was sending shockwaves through their empire. "Sir, we're detecting massive fleet movements," he reported to Commander Jiwon. "The Dominion is pulling ships from 12 different sectors. They're preparing a major counterattack." Jiwon studied the tactical displays showing enemy forces gathering near the galactic core. "How long before they reach Earth?" 6 months, assuming they use standard jump routes. "Good. That gives us time for Phase 4. Director Mihi activated communication channels that had been dormant for decades. Across Dominion space, human agents who had been living undercover as traders, diplomats, and even slaves received their final orders. Operation Liberation was beginning. On the mining world of Kepler-7, a human slave named Jamin received a coded message hidden in a routine work assignment. He had been pretending to be a captured refugee for 8 years, slowly building trust with the other enslaved species. Now it was time to reveal the truth. "Friends," he whispered to a group of alien prisoners during their rest period, "tomorrow we fight back. Earth has shown us the way." The rebellion began simultaneously on 47 worlds. Species that had been enslaved for centuries suddenly found themselves armed with weapons that human operatives had been secretly stockpiling. The Dominion, garrison commanders woke up to find their bases under attack by enemies they didn't know existed. Fleet Admiral Sunho led humanity's main battle fleet toward the Dominion capital system. His ships were no longer hiding in Earth's oceans. They moved through space openly, accompanied by vessels from dozens of liberated species who had joined humanity's cause. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from 3 more Dominion colonies," reported Captain Yunbin from the communication station. "The local garrisons are abandoning their posts rather than fight." Sunho nodded with satisfaction. Fear was spreading through the enemy faster than their ships could travel. The Dominion had built their empire on the belief that they were invincible. That belief was crumbling. General Taeyong prepared his ground forces for the final assault on Nexus Prime, the Dominion homeworld. His troops were no longer the desperate defenders who had fought the initial invasion. They were hardened veterans equipped with the best technology humanity could produce. "Remember," he told his officers during the final briefing, "we're not conquerors. We're liberators. Every world we free from the Dominion makes the galaxy safer for everyone." The battle for Nexus Prime lasted 3 days. The planet was defended by the largest fortress ever built, surrounded by automated defense platforms and protected by the elite Imperial Guard. But humanity had studied Dominion military doctrine for decades, and they knew exactly how to defeat it. Captain Nari led the fighter assault against the orbital defenses. Her pilots flew through a storm of enemy fire, their ships dancing between massive laser beams like birds avoiding raindrops. The alien gunners couldn't track targets that moved with such skill and precision. "Ghost Squadron, target the power generators," she ordered. "Once their shields fail, the bombers can finish the job." The orbital platforms fell one by one, their massive structures breaking apart under coordinated human attacks. The path to the planet's surface was finally clear. Admiral Kangman brought his fleet into close orbit around Nexus Prime. The planet below was covered with cities that stretched from pole to pole, the accumulated wealth of 1,000 conquered worlds. Soon that wealth would be returned to its rightful owners. Overlord Thexavar made his final stand in the Imperial Palace, a structure so large it could be seen from orbit. His personal guard consisted of the largest and most dangerous warriors in the Dominion military. But even they couldn't stop General Taeyong's assault troops. The humans fought their way through the palace room by room, their advanced weapons cutting through alien defenses like they were made of paper. Behind them came soldiers from dozens of species, all fighting together under Earth's leadership. Commander Jiwon entered the throne room first, her weapon trained on the massive alien leader. Overlord Thexavar stood twice as tall as any human, his black armor scarred from countless battles. But for the first time in his long life, he looked afraid. You were supposed to be primitives, he said, his voice filled with confusion and rage. Your technology was centuries behind ours. How did you do this? Ji-won walked closer, her expression calm and determined. You made the same mistake that every empire makes. You thought conquest was about destroying your enemies. We learned that victory comes from turning enemies into friends. Impossible. The weak serve the strong. That is the law of the universe. No, replied Ji-won firmly. The law of the universe is that cooperation beats competition. You conquered through fear and force, we won through knowledge and unity. She gestured toward the window, where the lights of celebration were beginning to appear across the planet's surface. Look outside. Your own people are celebrating our victory. They're tired of living under your tyranny. Thexvar stared in disbelief as crowds of his former subjects poured into the streets, cheering the arrival of human forces. Species that had been enslaved for generations were finally free. Dr. Minho established the new galactic government from the former imperial palace. The Galactic Liberation Council included representatives from every species that had been freed from Dominion rule. Earth provided the military leadership, but every world had an equal voice in the new government. Our first priority is rebuilding, he announced to the assembled delegates. The Dominion destroyed countless worlds during their expansion. We will help every species recover their heritage and their freedom. Director Mihi coordinated the massive task of freeing slaves and dismantling the Dominion's military infrastructure. Ships that had been built for conquest were converted into cargo vessels and hospital ships. Weapons factories became manufacturing centers for peaceful technology. The transformation took years, but humanity's patience and planning made it possible. The species that had suffered under Dominion rule discovered that their liberators were genuinely interested in helping them rebuild, not in replacing one empire with another. Captain Nari retired from military service to become a teacher, training pilots from dozens of different species in the art of flying. Her students learned not just technical skills, but the human philosophy of protecting others rather than dominating them. Commander Ji-won stood on the observation deck of the Liberation Council headquarters, looking out at the bustling spaceport below. Ships from hundreds of worlds came and went freely, carrying trade goods. Students and families reunited after decades of separation. Was it worth it? Asked Admiral Kangman, joining her at the window. 50 years of preparation for a war that lasted less than a year. Ji-won smiled, watching a group of children from 6 different species playing together in the station's park. The war was never about defeating the Dominion. It was about proving that there's a better way to live together. In the galaxy, the Galactic Liberation Council grew stronger every year, not through conquest but through the simple idea that cooperation created more prosperity than competition. And at the center of it all was a small blue planet whose people had learned that the greatest weapon was not technology or firepower, but the courage to help others find their freedom.